Good afternoon, everyone. Hope you're well. Happy Monday. I'm a bit confused with all the days today because I was at DSGO yesterday doing a 1.5 hour workshop, which I really enjoyed, and I think the attendees did as well. In other news, I have had my initial feedback from my book, and great news is it's not rubbish. No major changes, so I'm really excited about that. So as soon as I have a publishing date, I will let you know. I'm also really excited to fix this situation, which is happening right here. That will happen tomorrow. So that's what 6 months of not doing your hair looks like. So I am super excited about that. But I'm even more excited about today's guest. He's an awesome guest on a regular day, but today we have, you'd normally have to pay extra for this kind of service, but we've got an extra gruffly, raspy Mike Cadieux to join us. So I'm going to bring him on now, and I'll let him explain why he's so raspy and kind of phone line voice-ish. Hello, good afternoon.
Hi, Susan. How are you? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Great. I apologize. I have a very raspy voice today.
People pay a lot of money for that,
I know, and my wife was enjoyed it for a little while. Now she's like, okay, I just need you to cough and clear your throat. I am drinking tea with honey in it. My son had a big match this weekend, and I got a little overexcited at the match. So this is what you can get, and I hope it clears up because I'm actually hosting a podcast tomorrow, and I'm like, oh my God, this is going to be really strange. So,
oh my goodness.
Anyway, really happy to be here. Love talking to you as always. I hope you're well on the other side of the pond. And
you are sounding exactly like I sound after a Robbie Williams concert. So normally it clears within a day or so, but maybe it's just we're all so used to not shouting and not talking that suddenly our voices are not used to it anymore. So, I mean, you are Mr. Procurement Foundry, and Procurement Foundry is you. It's been going for a couple of years now. You've set it up and grown it into this global machine. It's not even a machine really, but this massive procurement network with people, connecting people all over the world. You've got all your different hubs, chapters, and yeah, I can't wait to find out more about how it started, and have you always been in procurement? I guess that's my first question. Is that something that you started out in, or did you fall into it like the rest of us?
Yeah, my background is actually procurement. So I'm a former chief procurement officer. I'm a practitioner, if you will. I'm not somebody who just kind of thought this was a really cool idea. I'm a student of the game, if you will. I'm always trying to learn more. I just have a real passion for sourcing and purchasing. My background is for up until about 2 years ago, I was for 18 years I was with Publicis Group, which is the second largest advertising company in the world, the French-owned holding company. I was in charge of sourcing and purchasing for one of their acquisitions in 2008, a company called Digitas. And when they acquired Digitas in 2008, when they finished that, I came to work for them at the holding company level, and I started running procurement operations for the Americas. They've got about 100 business units in the United States with about 45,000 employees. And I was responsible for a couple of $1 billion worth of spend with a team there. And I did that for about 8 years. Yeah, exactly. That's all. It was a fun ride. I learned a lot. Still got a lot of friends there. And then a couple of years ago, I decided I had my Jerry Maguire moment, if you will. I had or what my wife calls the CAT scan moment, when I decided to go out and start my own consulting firm. And I started my consulting firm, and it went and is still going well. Not very many people know I have a consulting firm on the side. My partner runs it all for now. I'm not really heavily engaged with it. And but when I was building out my consulting practice, I realized I needed to start collaborating with other people. And I had known for a very long time that we were bad at collaborating in procurement and sourcing. I mean, let's be honest, our conferences are not the most exciting conferences to go to. We're right above accountants on boringest conferences to go to, right?
Yeah.
So I thought it would be really good to kind of start to collaborate with some peers about things I was working on in my consulting business. I started a small little group, kind of like Fight Club for LinkedIn. In LinkedIn, it was private. You couldn't find it. You couldn't search for it. It was called The Real Deal. And we let about 50 people in to start. And they were all vetted, just like they still are. And it's free, still free. And what happened was some friends said, hey, I'd like to bring in this person or that person. And we went from 50 people to 800 people in about 4.5 months.
Wow.
And vetting people into a private LinkedIn group almost became a full-time job for me.
Yeah.
And that's when I realized, okay, I think there's something here around micro community development in the procurement and supply chain space. And that's when we really started to think about, okay, let's start this social experiment called the Procurement Foundry. We rebranded the whole thing Procurement Foundry. We went out and found Slack. We lit up the Slack community and then started inviting people into the Slack community. But we still maintain the same kind of mantra, which is we built this for practitioners, by practitioners. It's private. Not everybody can get in, as you well know,
Yeah,
unfortunately.
yeah.
You've
And
been asking to get in for about 2 years.
I know, as much as it upsets me, I do respect the fact that you do stick to it and you do vet everyone. So it is a safe space for procurement professionals.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we do get some people who sneak in because it's so big now. We get a couple of people who sneak in, but we monitor it very, very closely. And it's Chatham House rules. There's no cost, and our goal is very simple, which is to create a community where folks can feel comfortable gathering, collaborating, communicating with others, whether that's on personal development needs or professional development needs. We have all of it and everything in between, and it's been an amazing journey so far in the last 2 years. We'll be 2 years in June. So we're really excited.
It feels like it's been around a lot longer in a good way.
Yeah.
Feels like it's always been there. And also, you do events and things now, and I've seen you've got one coming up. Is it May or June?
It's June, yeah. Yeah. So we started with small stuff. We were like, see if we get some really smart people in here, we should have a webinar, right?
Yeah.
Let's get some really smart people on a webinar. We can help our practitioners learn something. Those webinars led to more webinars. And then we decided last year, hey, why don't we try and have a conference? A one-day virtual conference. We hosted 3 of those last year.
Yeah.
And they were really successful. I mean, we've got 500 to 700 people that come to our virtual conferences on average.
Amazing. Yeah, that's really good.
Yeah. And now I've gone out and I've hired some conference staff, and we're really excited about this year. We're going to host 4 conferences this year. We just did a huge conference on supplier diversity inclusion back in February, and had some of the biggest names in the industry speak at it. And now we're doing one in June called Digital Futures, which is all about digitalization and transformation of the workflow in procurement and sourcing. So
I'm guessing that
they're really timely.
Yeah, I'm guessing you're doing that topic because that is something that you are finding is being discussed in the Foundry. Is it a hot topic?
Yeah, it's kind of easy for us to find topics, right? I mean, so now we started, like I said, 2 years ago. We just crossed over 4,600 members in 117 countries. And we are, actively monitoring what people are talking about inside of the Foundry. And the reason why is because we want to, and we also ask them information. We want to know what the hot topics are so that we can present content and develop content for them on those topics. So for us, right now, the number one trending topic in the procurement foundry is supply diversity inclusion. Number two is digitalization. Number three is cost. And number four is emerging trends. So if you look at those primary topics inside of our community, that's exactly what we're building out for conferences this year.
Has that, like, the positions changed? Because I think, in my mind anyway, I would have thought cost would potentially be number one for a while. And then maybe that's just in recent times has changed.
A cost is always there. Everybody wants to talk about cost. I think that pre-COVID cost was at least number two on the list behind risk. Right. Risk mitigation, risk avoidance, things like that.
Yeah.
And what I would call the advancement of the craft or digitalization, right? Becoming more automated, adding more value, things like that. Value doesn't always come at the price of price, to be completely transparent.
You're so right.
And that's why I think it ranks a little bit lower. I think it's got a really high ranking right now because of COVID, and we're all still worried about reducing operating costs. But I think that that's going to swing back, and I think risk is going to come back as, the number one concern amongst procurement people. If it isn't, then they should be reevaluating what their priorities are, because risk mitigation, there's cyber risk, there's data risk, there's vendor risk, there's all sorts of different types of risk.
There's, I don't know if it's the same in the US, but certainly over here in terms of supply chain and the suppliers and how the labor and the costs, and even things like recently Boohoo, which is a fast cheap fashion company, had bought some other brands that were more premium here in the UK, and they were selling the exact same coat, maybe a different zip. But on the Boohoo site, it was like £16, and then on another site, it was £37. And it's made in the same factory by the same people, and it's also very questionable about the labour that's used within those factories. So, that's quite a hot topic over here.
Yeah, I think one of the things, and I don't know if I was on a Clubhouse conversation last week, I think it was, talking about supply chain logistics and freight, and the conversation was supposed to be about the Suez Canal and how that all kind of broke things up a little bit. And the conversation quickly went from the logjam in Suez Canal to the labor conditions on the vessels for the seafarers. And I think, honestly, after that conversation, I mean, we had a couple of boat captains, we had a couple of maritime graduates, we had a couple of maritime law specialists, a lot of people in freight and logistics. And I got to be honest with you, I think the labor market is probably one of the biggest threats to supply chain right now. I mean, if the seafarers ever were to organize and go on strike, the whole plan is going to come to a stop. And their labor conditions in the way in which they're operating on those vessels right now it's unbelievable. I wasn't even aware of this, that they're on those vessels for a minimum of 11 months to 18. And in this case, sometimes they're up to 24 months now. So 20 months on a boat, I'm jumping off at 24 months.
I did some work for a marine seafaring company, and like they had they get cable TV and stuff. Sometimes the not so appropriate channels as well. But I don't know. In my mind, I just didn't expect cable TV or satellite TV to be on a boat. But I'd find
it is, but it's very sketchy. It's very there is access, but it's very limited in certain places. And in the other places too, you have to remember that in a lot of vessels, they're international crews. So there might be a couple people from Nigeria, a couple people from the States, a couple people from, Asia Pac. They don't all speak the same languages, and the living condition and the amount of time they're on the boat. And because of COVID, they can't debark from the boats. So they've literally been on this boat for 2 years. Unbelievable.
That's crazy. I guess that's what they're talking about.
That's something that I'm hearing as an emerging. Yeah, that's definitely one of the emerging risks right now, right? That, and obviously the risk in the supply chain associated with containers and freight and, the backlog at the ports. You can walk across the boats out on the West Coast in San Francisco and different areas like that. So there's a really big jam up right now associated with freight, and it's causing freight conditions to go even higher, which is then causing cost of goods to go higher. It's a big problem.
Yeah, and also I think so. There's been definitely more of a spotlight on procurement in the last 12 months, good and bad. Do you think that the job market is changing within procurement? Was it changing anyway, and did COVID accelerate that?
Yeah, so I think it's changing absolutely. I mean, and I sit in a very unique position where I get to listen to 4,500 people talk about it all day long, right?
Yeah,
So I kind of have eyes and ears on the industry at any given
I
time.
love that. Yeah,
One of the things that it's definitely changing. So let's talk pre-COVID first. So pre-COVID, there was a very large global shortage of talent associated with sourcing and procurement, right? Now, even talent that's in the pool is probably underskilled for where they need to be, right? There's a
right.
lot of data analytics. I mean, you
Yeah,
meet people every day who don't know how to run an Excel sheet, never mind, do
yeah.
real spend analytics, right?
Yeah.
Or data cleansing or anything like that.
Oh, I've lost you.
Susan, you there?
You're
Hello?
back. Yeah, got you.
Sorry.
No, no.
I didn't realize that if I take phone calls, it stops the broadcast. I apologize.
Oh,
And I'm having technical difficulties on my laptop, which is why I'm on this ridiculous phone. So I apologize.
I'm just grateful that you could take time out of your busy schedule to come talk to me. So I don't mind how I see you.
No worries. So anyway, back to pre-COVID, there was definitely a talent shortage as a whole. Not a lot of people in supply chain, not a lot of people in procurement, and everybody was in kind of a bidding war for the good talent. And even the good talent is trying to skill up at any given time, right? Then bring COVID into the mix. Yes, COVID did cause some people to lose their jobs. Absolutely no question about it. Through what I would call irrational cost cutting. I don't see any reason at any point in time during a crisis situation where an enterprise should be eliminating jobs in procurement and sourcing. We should literally be the people out the door last, shutting the light off, right? Because we're in charge of the contracts associated with the electricity. So we should be the last ones out the door. But that said, I think what's going to happen is now that there's a light at the end of the tunnel on the COVID thing. And the fact that COVID shed such a light on supply chain and the importance of supply chain and making sure things get to their destination in the real-time inventory world that we live in, I think that we're going to swing back very, very hard against where we were before, which was a shortage. And I think we're going to have a very big shortage of talent post-COVID in the marketplace.
Yeah, something I wanted to ask you about as well was like the up and coming procurement, younger generation, because certainly in the UK, there's no promotion of the industry. Most people don't even know what procurement is. And it feels like a real missed opportunity with, people coming through school, university, to grab them while they're, when we've got their attention. Is it the same in the US?
Yeah, I think I don't listen. Nobody wakes up in the morning and says, "Hey, I think I want to get in supply chain." It's not really sexy, right? Everybody wants to be, a hedge funder or a stockbroker, or I don't know. There's the pharmaceutical industry and the healthcare industries are booming right now in the United States as far as that goes. And again, I think that our pay scales, we tend to be the redheaded stepchild, no pun intended. We tend to be the redheaded stepchild of the C-suite, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if you go down the hall, the chief procurement officer is probably the least paid person with the word chief in the front of their,
And
chief
who probably saves the most money as well.
and probably adds the most to the bottom line of the operation. So I think that that's changing. Obviously, Procurement Foundry is running and we just finished our second annual salary and compensation survey of our membership.
Nice.
That data is going to be coming out in the next couple of weeks.
Brilliant.
Our first data was unbelievable what we learned, and that was when we only had 1,200 members. Now we've got 4,500 members. We've got almost 1,000 people that answered the survey, and we've got some amazing data coming out of that.
So I guess. Sorry, I'm getting excited about the data now.
No, go ahead.
Yeah. So in the first one, did you find that for similar roles that across the states the salary varied, or was it across industries, or is it everything?
Yeah, so we made one mistake last year, which was we didn't ask about industry. So I couldn't segment the data by industry. Everything else I can segment the data by, and we did in the presentation, which is now available on LinkedIn, right, for last year's survey. So any of your listeners want to go take a look at last year's survey, they can go up onto our LinkedIn profile and find it. We can definitely segment out the data. So we know, for example, that 29% of our respondents are female, 71% are male. We know that women are on average getting paid 17.8% less than men in the United States, but it varies, which is really interesting. Based on last year's data, and I don't know where this year's data is yet, but based on last year's data, the West Coast, the delta in the West Coast was like 2 to 4% in pay scale. But if you went over to the East Coast and you went down south to Florida and that southern region, the pay scale differential changed from 4% in California to almost 30% in Florida. So as you go further east and further south, the pay scales drastically change.
I cannot wait to see your next survey.
Yeah, and we also have data associated with MBAs and 4-year degrees versus industry certifications, whether or not industry certifications are valuable in the form of compensation.
One of my questions, what you think, or what's the perception of them?
So this is a very controversial. This is where you should put the hashtag in. Mike Cadieux confrontational or controversial comment time. So our survey data last year showed, on average, of all of our recipients, believe it or not, people who do not have industry certifications actually make more money than people that do have industry certifications. That's what our data showed us. There was one small segment right down at the bottom, entry-level junior associates. They were making about 8.5% to 9% more than their peers without a certification. So if you're going to get a certification, get it early and get it so that it gets you your first job. Because after that, at least from a financial perspective, it doesn't seem to factor into the equation very much.
Yeah,
that doesn't mean you shouldn't go get it. It doesn't mean it's not valuable to you. It just means that based on our salary survey, it doesn't show that it reflects in compensation. You're much better off going and getting an MBA.
Interesting. Also, in the Proc Women group, we have a procurement director in there, and she has not got any industry certification or even a degree.
Yeah, no.
And it's not been a barrier for her. So,
so a little bit more about my background too, right? So my background, I got all the way up to chief procurement officer, second largest company in the world in advertising. I don't have any industry certifications, and I don't have an MBA.
Perfect. If you could go back, would you do an MBA or?
I think if I went back, the one thing I would probably do is I'd learn how to code.
Yeah.
I don't think I would have taken an MBA. I think coding, even if I'm not an active coder, I think the mindset around coding and connecting systems and being able to and talk intelligently at the coding level is probably more valuable for me right now than an MBA.
Yeah, no, I think I'm with you on that one. I think that's a good shout. And so what is next for the Procurement Foundry?
Oh, God. What isn't next for the Procurement
Foundry? Yeah, well, apart from world domination,
Yeah, I don't know about that. I've been accused of that a couple of times, and I apologize to everyone.
Don't ever apologize for world domination.
So our goal is very simple. We want to help practitioners to get. The reason why I built this thing was for practitioners, which is why there's no membership fee, right? And I want to be able to have practitioners collaborating and helping others as much as possible. So for us, the number one goal is to grow. We want to have more and more people helping more people. So we're looking at probably 8,000 to 10,000 members this year by the end of the year. We'll probably be in, there's not very many more countries left to get into, but I think we will grow our regional chapters. Our regional chapters is at 40 right now. We'll probably be at 60 or 75 before the end of the year.
That's phenomenal.
Yeah, we're growing more in Europe now than we're growing in the United States, believe it or not, and in Asia Pac. For us, bringing more people in to collaborate and helping them find jobs or upskill or sending them to a webinar, things like that, that's definitely in the future for us. The Procurement Foundry is working on a number of things right now that we've just recently announced. One of them is we've actually, in the last month, we just announced a scholarship fund, which I'm thrilled about.
Oh, so wow. I didn't hear it. I missed that completely.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
So we formed a 501c corporation, a nonprofit corporation. The Procurement Fund itself is for profit. And we do that through webinars and conferences and other things, but in advertisement and marketing of our partners. But we also want to stay true to our core, which is about developing practitioners. So for us, we're thrilled about the fact that we just started a scholarship fund. We've got our first $5,000 committed from some of our corporate partners already. Procurement Foundry itself is putting up another $2,500. Our members, we expect our members to drop at some really good donations in as well. And the other thing too is, if somebody wants my time associated with the industry or what I'm hearing or things like this, I'm now starting to charge a donation fee for my time. So brilliant. So I can't give it away anymore. But certainly we're doing scholarship funds. We're in the process of developing a global mentoring program, regardless of what company and where you are geographically. So you'll be able to have a mentor anywhere in the world, whether that's a lateral mentor or a vertical mentor, we don't care. So if you're in facilities category right now and you want to get into IT, that's what should be a lateral mentor. If you're a manager and you want to become a vice president, that's a horizontal. So we're building out, we're talking to the number one mentoring software in the world about partnering with Procurement Foundry.
Fantastic.
More conferences. So 2022, I just got off this phone call with the conference team this morning. We will be in the physical conference space in 2022 in some way, shape, or form.
Amazing.
So we're coming to the physical conference space. We are in the process of building out. We just launched a job hub. So I don't know if you heard me talk about this last year. I was ranting about the fact that I can't stand that people in our industry need to go search for jobs. I think in 2021, jobs should search for people and people shouldn't search for jobs. So what we did was we created a database with a machine learning algorithm. I'm not going to say artificial intelligence because I don't believe artificial intelligence exists yet. I will say there's some really smart machine learning out there. Yeah. And one of the things we did was we created, and we just launched it last week again, is we can drop a job description into our job board now, and it searches our membership for the best matches, regardless of whether you're employed or not. So our members now don't have to search for jobs. We have jobs searching our membership. So
that's great. I also have heard a lot over the last year that people haven't been finding jobs in the traditional way. It's been networking or LinkedIn or personal referrals rather than actually going to job websites and looking for things.
Yeah, we actually have a micro group inside of the Procurement Foundry called Active Job Seekers, and they meet every Thursday about jobs, and they talk about jobs they're hearing about. We bring in specialists like resume specialists or social, what's your social presence and things like that. And we help to try and advise people who are actively looking for jobs and give them a place. I don't want to call it a self-help group because that's just too morbid, but it's definitely an organization of members who, by the way, got together on their own. I had very little to do with this. They just kind of grew it on their own and started having informal meetings inside of the Slack community, then turned into Zoom meetings. And now they've got an active group of active members who are job looking. I want to say the last time I spoke with somebody from that organization, which was a couple of weeks ago, I think we've had 20 or 25 people find jobs through that process.
That's
So
fantastic.
absolutely thrilled at that. Not something I actually designed when I thought of. I mean, obviously, I'd love to help people find jobs. I mean, who
Yeah.
doesn't, right? But was my thing was really around how do I give you a place where you can talk to other practitioners who do what you do, so you're not alone in this thing? Because I mean, let's be honest, we're as sourcing and procurement people, we tend to put our head down and focus. And I thought, when I started this thing, I thought, geez, wouldn't it be really cool? And I was an IT buyer by trade. I buy technology. And I thought, wouldn't it be cool if I could go out and ask 500 IT buyers in one location a question and see what I got back as an answer? And now, inside of Procurement Foundry, we have a global technology sourcing room with 1,500 people. And if you ask a question in that room, the average wait time before you get an answer from a peer from around the world is about an hour.
That's
So,
brilliant.
and you'll get, if you go overnight, you'll see some people get 4 answers, 8 answers, 12 answers, and it starts a chain, which then long term is searchable so that you don't have to ask the same question again, which is exactly what I wanted.
Amazing. And so I guess I can't have you on and not ask, as a CPO and having a procurement career, what is the most unusual thing you've had to procure?
The most unusual thing I had to procure wasn't actually Publicis Group, believe it or not. So I back in 2008, my dad was retired from the state. He was a government employee, and so I bought a small little fishing tackle shop in town for him to, love his hobby and love to fish.
Yeah.
And I bought a little tackle shop so he could operate it, right? And at one point in time, there was a fishing tournament that required chum for shark fishing and things like that. And there's this huge catch and release fish tournament that takes place every year with sharks. And so my father told me that he needed to buy 10,000 pounds of algae for the chum.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, where the heck are we going to find 10,000 pounds of algae? and using my procurement expertise, I called the local aquariums and finally found somebody at SeaWorld down in Florida who was buying algae for some of the smaller exhibits.
Yeah.
And so I jumped on and I bought some algae from one of the people that SeaWorld bought their algae from. We mixed it into the chum. And
how did the fishing event go?
One of our boats won, actually. So I was thrilled
worth it. Yeah.
Yeah, but
brilliant.
They use it as a research project. So they actually research the sharks. They tag the sharks and let them go. So they use it as a tracking, and they work with a lot of marine biologists and things like that as part of it. So it's a very non-invasive way to get specimens into the boat so they can tag them and then release them is by rods and reels. So it was kind of cool. I don't own it any longer, but for a few years there, my dad and I had a lot of fun together.
Oh, brilliant! And
algae, definitely the number one weirdest thing.
Definitely. What's the best thing about working in procurement?
The people. The people are amazing. I remember when we first started Procurement Foundry, I remember a lot of people calling me up and saying, there's no way in heck that any of procurement people are going to share information with other procurement people. And I am so overwhelmed and shocked and proud of the industry we're in and the amount and the willingness to help others, whether that's personally or professionally, to help them succeed in their goals and objectives. I'm just absolutely thrilled to even be a spectator in it and be a part in it. It's just
I find. Sorry.
No. That's by far it.
Yeah, no, I can see it just even on LinkedIn, the support and knowledge sharing, very generous. Nobody's well, I'm sure there are some people, but most people are happy to share their experiences and help people along the way.
As long
But
as as long as it's not creating a conflict of interest, or they're not
yeah,
breaking any, agreements or things like that. A lot of it's really high level, like, hey, I'm looking to, a lot of people we have in our community are just starting out, meaning they're just launching a procurement organization in a company for the first time, and they're not really sure where to start. And it's like, okay, let's get a framework, let's get some governance, let's get some guidelines, let's do some basic spend analytics and find some savings opportunities.
yeah,
Let's see where your major risk pools are in contractual and try and change the risk criteria that you have. Things like that. It's amazing how fast people come together and are willing to help others. Yeah, it's been shocking to me. I'm overwhelmed with the generosity of our industry.
yeah. And on the flip side of that, I mean, what would you say is the most frustrating thing about working in procurement?
Well, I think that I think probably the number, at least, I don't know, I can tell you what my community, or what I'm hearing from my community. One is definitely the frustration associated with the lack of understanding of the value proposition that procurement and supply chain brings to the table,
Yeah,
which then trickles down to, compensation models, retention models, training and education budgets, all those other things. And I try and help people all the time. Somebody said to me in a Clubhouse meeting, because we've extended our procurement founder community into Clubhouse now. Somebody said to me, "Hey, I saved $1 million last quarter on a contract," and I said, "That's amazing." And they said, "Well, it's all right." And I said, what is the operating margin that your company works on?" And they said, "Well, our company works on about 10% operating margin." I said, "Okay, so you just helped your sales team no longer needs to go find a new $10 million client this year because you saved $1 million in operating costs." And they hadn't really thought about it that way before.
yeah,
They hadn't taken it down into, okay, what does it represent in newfound sales versus direct savings to the P&L? And when you start to think about that, it's like, okay, we can have a
yeah,
debate over what cost savings is and what isn't cost savings and cost avoidance and all of those things. And that's a healthy conversation to have. But at the end of the day, I think that COVID, for all of its horrors, COVID has done one good thing, which is to shine a light on the value necessary, the value proposition of supply chain and procurement people.
yeah. Great answer. And let's talk about Clubhouse. So you're pretty active on there. I mean, I don't know how you have enough hours in the day. Are you actually sleeping?
Not very much. Not very much. No, we don't sleep very much here. We're all about, and like I said earlier, I'm really a student of the game, right? So for me, if I'm not learning, I'm the Rolling Stone gathers no moss, right? So if I'm not learning, if I'm not going forward, I'm going backwards. So for me, Clubhouse, it's an interesting, it's a social experiment, just like
Yeah,
procurement foundry. It's kind of the same thing. It's for me, and I find it really interesting. You can make some really rapid connections. It's interesting that there's no video, because then from a psychological perspective, the video kind of brings people's barriers down. There's a lot of sharing going on. There's a bunch of junk in Clubhouse. Don't get me wrong. There's a bunch of, you can get lost in it for days. I got lost in it for days. However, that said, you can find and stumble across some really amazing subject matter experts that are willing to give
I
you
got a really
unbelievable insight.
Yeah, I got a really great tip from Clubhouse. Somebody told me to check out the history of swearing on Netflix. Can't think who that
Oh,
was.
yeah. Yeah. Well, when I'm not in Clubhouse and I'm not building a community, I'm binging something. Yeah. With my
Um,
wife.
I I saw just today, I think it was on LinkedIn. There's a new book out on why swearing is good for you and all that kind of stuff. So I'm like, yes, I'm all for that.
Well, if that's the case, then I'm pretty healthy. Yeah. Yeah.
Apparently, all the best people do swear. Apparently, so there you go.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know. I'll take that. Absolutely. I'll take that.
So if you were considering a career now in procurement, what kind of advice would you offer to people starting out in the industry?
I would say absolutely. For the first time in a long time, I think the value proposition of procurement is being seen. I think there's going to be a huge talent shortage, which means it's going to drive up compensation models even higher. Um, I think that I would be very interested in learning as much technology and digitalization as possible. If I was getting in right now, I would be heavily focused on what's happening in blockchain and smart contracts and where that's going to take procurement and sourcing long term.
Yeah.
That would be my number one focus right now, which is another reason why, honestly, it's another reason why I'm actually on Clubhouse, because I can jump into a couple of blockchain and smart contract rooms and just listen and really nerd out, which I use with all the affection in the world.
Yeah.
Because I can speak geek, but I'm not a geek, so I need to hear it 3 or 4 times.
Yeah. Yeah. Snap. So how do you see procurement moving forward and changing in the future then, either based on your own perception or what's been discussed in the foundry?
Sorry, I just had another phone call come in. Can you see me?
Yeah, it's fine.
Sorry, can you ask the question again?
Yeah, so how do you see the future of procurement? What's going to change going forward? And that can either be your own personal opinion or what you are seeing and hearing within the foundry.
I think it's much more global than localized, first off. I think that there's going to be a major shift from build to buy because of the lack of talent available in the marketplace. I think it will eventually, in a very large way, go the route of legal. So if you look at internal legal teams, there's a couple of internal, chief legal counsel or general counsel, but then they go to outside counsel for almost everything, right? If there's an HR issue, they go out to an HR specialist. If there's a real estate deal or a merger acquisition deal, they're going out to an outside specialist. I think that long-term supply chain and procurement goes down the same route, and you're looking for, a Microsoft or an enterprise software specialist. Just because you won't be able to carry the staff. It's going to be too expensive.
Yeah. I saw recently Daniel Barnes was talking about that as well. So it's definitely a hot topic.
And I think buy versus build is a long-term play. But I think short term, probably the next 2 to 5 years, there's a lot of room for experience and fast growing. I'm hearing large corporations that are putting in 25, 50, 75 new FTEs inside of their sourcing organizations. So definitely that. I think you need to upskill. I think you need to be definitely thinking a lot more strategic than tactical. Like, for example, I'm much more interested in, negotiating contracts and paying bills. But when I'm paying bills, I'm also thinking now about what's the tax ramifications of that? What's the payment ramifications of that? Can I get into V-Card global payment? How long before I'm going to be able to pay bills in cryptocurrency? When is the end of the invoice coming? Which is a scary conversation, right? But the end of the invoice is coming, right? I mean, somebody's going to comment on this and be like, he's lost his marbles.
I think you're right. There's still written invoices kicking around out there. It's awful. It's horrific.
Yeah, and I'm talking about even the digital invoices, right? So let's go from written invoices to digital invoices, and then from digital invoices to just triggers inside of smart contracts on the blockchain.
Yeah.
Like, why do I need an invoice? I don't need it, And I think the long-term conversation and the long-term decision is going to be, okay, I acquired this from this company, and my company now has received that good. The smart contract is actually triggered, and I'm ready to transact and finish this transaction. The only real question left is, which cryptocurrency am I going to pay you in?
Oh, you're giving me loads of ideas now, like thinking about even just like deliveries, how you have to like either sign their pad. Well, if you had the app, you could sign the app from your phone rather than theirs.
You won't
And then
really
that
need
would,
that. You won't really need that because there'll be an RFID tag that tells you, hey, that box is now delivered to your house. Pay the vendor, right? I mean, you don't need to scan anything.
yeah,
The Internet of Things and the blockchain altogether, a non-hackable distributed ledger that tells you that your box has arrived vis-a-vis, Wi-Fi and RFID tagging in the Internet of Things. Okay, everything's here. I don't need to know whether or not I got my 10 laptops today because the 10 tags inside of the laptop told me that they're here. So
amazing.
I think that's the future of everything. I think a lot of people need to upskill. I think there's a ton of people that need to get soft skills and fast. If you're not taking soft skill classes on the side or reading a book or listening to a podcast, I mean, for the love of God, if you're not listening to the negotiation podcast by now, please get on.
Yeah.
Stop, please. Binge all the television you want, please. But at the same time, binge some podcasts and learn some additional soft skills at the same time.
Yeah. No, I've just started listening to some negotiation podcasts, and I'm like, I should have been doing this a long time ago. I'm a terrible negotiator. But yeah, that's crazy. So in terms of, is there any topics that we haven't touched on that you think we need to be discussing right now?
No, I think probably the only thing that I would like to say is thank you to everybody who has been involved with Procurement Foundry to date. All the folks who are thinking about getting involved, we'd love to have you. We've opened up Clubhouse so that we've got sell side and buy side practitioners in Clubhouse. We've recently just started Foundry Text in the United States, where we send out job of the day to text. Free of charge. We're doing our best to keep the cost at zero for practitioners. And if you need help, it's out there. Just come and ask for it.
Yeah, I'm just going to put the link in the chat now for anyone who's not a member. If you're in procurement on the buy side, get signed up.
And if you're on the sell side, please jump to our Clubhouse community. We'd love to have you in our conversations on Clubhouse. That's why we did Clubhouse, was because we understand that we cannot bring the sell side into our Slack community because that's a private community, a safe haven for our buyers, away from the noise of LinkedIn and all the other things. But on Clubhouse, we mix it up. I mean, if you look at Clubhouse meetings, we've got buy side and sell side all on the same panel discussion.
I'll never forget. It was over maybe even 2 years ago now. But I remember in one day, 2 separate people had said, "Oh, you're being discussed in the Foundry," and I was like, "That's so cool."
Yeah, I had somebody reach out to me the other day who is just kicking off a product in the industry, who hasn't even released the product yet, and they're in stealth mode. And they reached out to me and they said, something's going on inside of your community. And I said, why? And they said 50% of our inbound leads on a private, quiet company that we haven't launched yet is all coming out of your community. And I hadn't even heard of it. And I was like, I don't know. The practitioners are talking about some new evolving technology that this company has. And I was like, oh, that's great. Congratulations. So yeah, I think there's some amazing things. I mean, listen, we get a lot of engagement, right? Community is all about engagement and helping others and giving what you get out. And we're blessed that our members give a lot and get a lot out of it. And we're trying to raise that engagement every day. I mean, right now we're about 20% on a weekly basis, but we're trying to get even more than that.
Can you imagine, maybe a lot of these members have only ever known each other online, but, once everything starts to open up again, could you imagine like the biggest procurement party in the world if everyone got together?
Yeah, we're planning that now, actually. So we are definitely planning a physical event next year for our members. It won't necessarily be a traditional conference. It really will be about our members and about soft skills for them and upskilling. And so we're planning an event specifically just for our membership.
Brilliant. That's great.
Yeah.
Oh, I want to leave it there because I feel really bad that I've made you talk for nearly an hour when you have a raspy voice already. Go and get more honey and
I got to refill my.
Yeah, maybe a wee drama whiskey or something in there as well. That helps. Doesn't matter, when it's a sore throat. It doesn't matter what time of the day it is. It doesn't count. I just want to thank you so much for taking your time again, especially when you've got a croaky voice. I've really enjoyed our chat. I've learned loads, and I hope that people will sign up and get engaged with the Procurement Foundry. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Susan. I appreciate it, and I love what you're doing with data. You know that I'm a data freak myself, so I love what you do with data, and when I have questions, I definitely call you. So thank you for what you do as well.
Yeah. No, thank you. Right. Well, safe. Look after yourself, and I will see you soon. Take care.
All right. Take care.
Thanks. Oh, sorry, that was a bit quick. Bye.
Bye.
A bit trigger happy there. So that is it for another week. I really enjoyed that. I thought that was a fascinating insight into secret worlds, and just really, would echo what Mike said about like procurement people being really generous with their time and sharing knowledge and stuff. So that's it for me this week. I'm off to go and build some patio furniture so that I can put it on my new balcony. I'm very excited. As you might have seen from my post, I got it cleaned today, so I need to keep it clean and scare the birds away now. Next week, I've got Jenny Barnes on talking all things data. So she will be with me same time next week. And I, again, always ask if you have any recommendations of anyone you'd like to get on, then please let me know and we'll get them on. But in the meantime, have a great week and I'll see you next Monday. Bye.
Now